2:30 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Atlantic Standard, because we are broadcasting out of the beautiful turquoise waters of the Caribbean Sea from the beautiful island of St. Croix. So welcome to the program and welcome to the weekend, everyone, because if you're hearing me live, that means it's a Friday, because we're here every Friday, 12:30 to 2:30. And so welcome to St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, Jost Van Dyke, Tortola, BVI in general, Up Island, Down Island, St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, Puerto Rico, and the Florida Keys, if the ionosphere is cooperating with the radio signal, but actually welcome to the world, because we are going live over the internet. And also, if you are not able to join us live on Friday afternoons, you can always watch the recording on YouTube or Facebook at your convenience. Twitch TV, not so much. That's live only. This is this is Children of the Sun, a show dedicated to enlightened talk radio from a fifth dimensional perspective. And my guest today, I like to have people who are contributing positive energy, either locally, nationally, or internationally. And I think my guest today, Tom Thompson, fits into that last category as someone who's contributing positive energy, life positive, we could say. Right, Tom?
Yes.
Tom, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ray. It's great to be here.
Cool. Hey, I want to give give the folks kind of like a brief idea of who you are and what you're all about. Tom was on a spiritual path from very early age, like he since the age of 15, and that was back in probably 1964. Found a yoga book in his aunt's library and began to answer some of the questions that he was already formulating. And he spent his entire life has just been encounters and trainings and teachings from one spiritual teacher after another. And he's collected a host of spiritual names. He got a yoga teacher training certification all the way back.
Names are for sale.
Huh?
Not that I was joking. I said all the names are for sale now. If anybody wants them.
Yeah. Hopefully not, but yoga teacher training certification in 1971 in Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti, and Jnana Yoga from Swami Vishnu Devananda, who you kind of just say with the International Shivananda Yoga Vendetta Center, he's kind of like the founder, and he was like the first guy from India to come and do yoga teacher certifications in the West. And so that's where you started in 1971. Raja Yoga with Katha Benandi, Tai Chi with Ed Young. Okay, thank you. And was he like a specialist teacher from Indiana?
Well, he got his PhD in psychology here in North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and he was a psychology professor at the college I was at. But he'd been practicing yoga since he was 6 years old. He didn't talk about it in the West that much, but he was in the Ramakrishna Vivekananda lineage. And I studied Raja Yoga, pretty much Vivekananda's Raja Yoga with him. He was a really,
cool.
really powerful influence.
And I think also Swami Muktananda was a powerful influence on you. He authorized you to give Hamsa meditation and you got Shaktipat from him, and maybe let's start with that. I've read accounts of people having experiences with him, and they were pretty powerful, and I think you had some pretty powerful experiences with him as well. So maybe if you wanted to, you could start with just tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, until I was with Muktananda, everything that was happening was through my own will and efforts, or I should say, apparently my own will and efforts. And so, you try hard, you learn the breathing, the pranayama, the meditation, and you do it. And hopefully gain some awareness or some insight or revelation.
Right.
But the field of consciousness around Muktananda spontaneously drew you in those states. So when there were philosophical teachings, they weren't philosophical teachings. You were having a direct experience. So you were in a totally different field of energy, and it was the first time I realized there was another power moving through us other than our own mind and will. And so what was happening is, you could say progression was much more rapid because I realized I wasn't driving the bus, so to speak. And so it was a matter of surrendering and opening and relaxing and allowing this power, traditionally called the Kundalini Shakti, this inner intelligence, which is much greater than our me mind, taking over. And so these revelations and realizations were so much easier, and it was seeing that it wasn't just our willpower, it was something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was great. And of course, I wasn't the only one who had that experience. There were literally thousands of people who had that experience with it.
And one time you asked him a question about it was emptiness, the point, end goal.
Yeah. So that was fairly early on when I first met him, because I was doing Zen training, and shunyata in most Buddhist teachings and in Zen has a emptiness, properly understood. And Muktananda was sitting up there bopping people. He was, they were answering questions. His attention was ranging. And I came up and said I had a question. They had me stand to the side. And finally I said, is emptiness, shunyata, is that the final realization? And he just glanced at me and he said, no, that realizes, that knows emptiness is the final realization. So how do we even know there's emptiness? How do we know there's shunyata? Something knows that. It's appearing in awareness. And that really was, at that moment, I had one of the more powerful Kensho experiences than I'd ever had in all my years in Zen. Because it was so obvious at that moment. It was so obvious what he was saying was true.
Was it because you were in his energy field or something? Like you got
it? I think what would happen if I read that in the book or somebody else said that, that would be an interesting intellectual piece of information, to think about. But because of the spiritual power around him, it was obviously so. I mean, it wasn't like I had to think about it. It was like, duh. It's like, obviously so. That how can we talk about emptiness? How can we talk about shunyata? How can we know this non-existence unless there's some awareness of it? And it appears, it's an appearance. Even emptiness, even formlessness, even that without qualities is an appearance, or known by the ultimate subject, the ultimate knower. So yeah, I don't think that would happen if I wasn't in his energy field.
Okay, right. So this energy, this Shaktipat, is very powerful. And you also, in addition to receiving it from Muktananda, you also received it from. I want to run through your kind of bio
Sure.
really quick, and then get to the point of what you're doing today, because we got many decades to sum up. So you also received Shaktipat from a Kundalini Mahayoga master, got advanced certifications in Siddha Yoga, Kundalini Mahayoga from Sri Anandi Ma and Dilipji.
Their
You
guru,
co-founded a yoga. I'm sorry?
yeah, their guru,
Yeah.
my guru is Sri Dhyan Yogi Madhusudan Das. He lived to be 116.
Wow.
And Dr. Lee Sanella, who is a psychiatrist and founder of the Kundalini Clinic, Lee connected me with Sri Dhyan Yogi, who was a Kundalini master. He actually came like out of the 1800s to the 20th century and then 21st century. But I was having very, very powerful Kundalini experiences. Again, usually what had happened in the past, you could contain this within the context of the mind, but these were things literally blowing my mind, and I needed help. And Lee, Dr. Sanella, suggested I meet Guruji, Sri Dhyan Yogi, and I did, and he helped me a lot. He thought he patted me on the head and said, "Don't worry, Tulsi Ram, everything will be fine." I mean, this was his realm, so what was frightening to me was no big deal to him, and he helped me tremendously, and he was a huge influence in my life. And now his disciples.
Lee Sanella or Lee Sanella you're talking about, or his guru?
Well, no, Dhyan Yogi was a huge influence. I was with him in the United States, and I was with him in India. And his successor, Sri Anandi Ma, also was a huge influence on my life. She's still alive. She's either in California or India right now.
I remember when his Lee Sanella's book came out about the Spiritual Emergence Network or Kundalini Crisis Network, and there was an 800 number in the back of the book that I called a couple of times.
Spiritual Emergency Network. I was a member of that for many years. Yeah. Because again, when this starts happening, our little model of reality starts getting blown apart.
Yeah. And there's the physical stuff as well, which can be like you're wondering what's going on. When you went to India to meet with Swami Nityananda, are you talking Bhagwan Nityananda, the old guy, or are you talking the young guy?
The young guy.
Okay.
And I like him. I was very close to him, and in the late 1980s, he started an ashram or a spiritual center in New York, Shanti Mandir. And I went up there with some of my friends a few times, and we had Shaktipat intensives with him. So it was little Nit, as I call him, Nityananda. But
you think he's the real deal? So you think he's like for real, the real deal?
I think he is authentically doing what Muktananda wants him to do.
Okay.
He said neither he nor his sister are in the same state Muktananda was in.
Okay.
But he feels.
I went to his sister's place up in New York. It was kind of a very controlled atmosphere, let's say.
That's correct.
So you also went into Tibetan Buddhism and received a transmission in Adi Yoga, Maha Adi Yoga, from
Dilgo Khyentse. Yeah, you've done your homework. Oh my God.
Yeah. But you also did. So you did a lot of Western personal growth stuff, like Werner Erhardt's Forum, Heart Math certification. You must have been one of the very first ones. We got that so long ago. Clinical hypnotherapist, You worked as a psychiatric healthcare worker in a mental hospital for like 12 years. Energy work, transactional analysis. And so like that's one of the things that really I find interesting. You were like a spiritual seeker, then you became a finder, became awakened. And a lot of times people like you are only going to be dealing with people, very serious spiritual seekers that are coming to them to help them be in your satsang and the energy field of your satsang and have enlightenment. But you actually also do work as a life coach, working with people on mundane things like I hate my job and what do I do? And then I was thinking, actually, like even the gurus in India, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramakrishna, I've read accounts of disciples coming to them for conversations, and some of them are discussing the finer points of Hindu cosmology, but others are just like, I hate my job. What do I do? And they just give routine advice. So how do you see the whole interrelationship between personal growth and spiritual growth?
It's all supreme consciousness manifesting, and I don't tell people what they should want or what they should. Well, I do sometimes tell them what they should do, but only if they ask. But when people come to me, I ask, what is it you really, really want? And some people are having conflicts with their husbands or wives. They're in jobs. They're sick. I just spoke a few days ago with a woman who has overcome 4 major illnesses in the 30 years I've known her, and we're talking serious illnesses: cancer twice, heart disease, things like that. So I meet people with what they feel is most important, and if I feel I can support them in some way, I do that. If I don't, I try to refer them to somebody who can. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not an anything. So I'm a consultant, and I have these things that you mentioned that often are able to support or help people. But I'm also, because of my years in the hospital, well aware of when people need help different than me. And when I lived in another town, Southern Pines, I was hooked up with the psychiatrists, Dr. Schulte, medical doctors like Dr. Waddell, other therapists who I could refer people to. So that's what I would do, is if I really felt I wasn't the person they need to be seen, I'd refer them out. Or work together as a team. That's often what happened, is there'd be several of us helping somebody as a team. But there are people who come to me who want to get past their college exams. They want to be able to get into college.
Like test anxiety, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So hypnosis is really good for that. And sports performance. A lot of people, that's where things like hypnotherapy are measurable, or chess, things like that, is the level of performance before and then the level of performance later. And it's a very measurable distance. And a lot of people use hypnosis, like Sylvester Stallone, Tiger Woods, the list, very long list. Because your subconscious mind is a goal achieving instrument, and it's very powerful and very creative. But it's also like a computer. If you don't put the program in it, it's just going to continue to do what it's always done. But if you change that program, it can do that. And a lot of people, you can stop me anytime you want. A lot of people have programs like, I don't deserve to get better. I'm not worthy of getting a PhD. Who am I fooling? Things like that. And those are unconscious beliefs that have to be released. And you can't really get to them in talking therapy. So hypnosis and energy psychology can really get to those core beliefs and release them. I can't get enlightened. Only special people get enlightened. I don't know if we're breaking up. I don't know if you can hear me. I can't hear you yet, Ray. Oops. Okay, looks like
I
you're
don't
back.
be running it. Okay.
Hey, Ray.
Well, the Vegas of live broadcasting. We had a. We'll edit all that out. Don't worry about it.
So if we get disconnected again, is it best if I just go off and come back on?
Only if you lose the internet connection. I would say just stay on.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need to disconnect and reconnect. So yeah, and so you do like spiritual work and you do personal, and you were talking about people's subconscious programming, which like my experience with that is you don't even know that it's there half the time.
Correct.
So you do work with people on a spiritual level and as a life coach, and like after running down all your impressive biography of all the trainings, Eastern and Western paths that you've received, I really like how you kind of just humbly and simply sum it up by calling yourself a teacher of conscious living. And you've even founded with your wife Bonnie, Center for Conscious Living, what you're calling the Center for Conscious Living. And like, I'm just going to read off of your website so that people have an idea of what you mean by conscious living. Conscious living is an all-inclusive way of life. It is based on the enlightenment pathways of the East and the human potential teachings of the West. It includes the possibility of radical awakening, along with the integration of body, emotions, mind, and spirit, living skillfully and effectively in this world and being in loving, empowering relationships. The teachings of conscious living are direct, obvious, and all-inclusive. There is nothing to be believed or accepted as they are self-evident. They point to the incredible gift and mystery of life living us here and now as we are. And so you have this center in North Carolina now?
Well, we had an actual physical center, a cottage, for about 20 some years, and we had classes there, we had programs, and I met with clients privately there. We sold out a few years ago and we moved out of that town, and now we don't have a physical center. I meet with people on Zoom, and I also have a weekly satsang on Zoom. So we did sell the physical center where we were for many years. We had a bookstore in it. We had a library. It was great, and we had lots of people coming through. But it's a lot to keep. It's a lot to keep up. And we didn't do the traditional guru thing, so we didn't have students as slaves. You know, a lot of people did help us out. They helped us out a lot, but we didn't make that part of it. We had very clear contractual, you know, if you take this class, this is how much it's cost. And so Bonnie and I basically maintained the center ourselves and paid help, but we didn't, you know, and again, some people were very kind and helpful and generous, but it was very clear contracts of what people were getting and stuff. So we did that for over 20 years in Southern Pines, North Carolina.
And you're still meeting with people on weekly for satsang over Zoom and with private clients. And I guess sometimes they come to your house, and sometimes it's over Zoom or Skype.
Yeah, mostly right now we're still doing that on Zoom. I have a really nice office here in the house, but we're not using it right now. I'm still meeting with people on Zoom.
And
or FaceTime.
The whole idea of conscious living, that sounds to me like something where when people begin to wake up, maybe they haven't fully awakened, but they're beginning to wake up and to like apply that into their everyday life. And so their relationship with other people becomes less, they become less of a separate individual, and so it's less competitive and less conflict, and so they're more willing to see others in a loving light and accept them and cooperate with them. And people like Eckhart Tolle talk about how this is consciousness wanting for humanity to evolve to the next level. So it's almost like you are helping to, with your teachings on conscious living, you're helping to bring the airy fairy pie in the sky spirituality stuff back down into the earth. And you could almost say conscious living is then humanity evolving in its consciousness towards this higher level of existence, or way of running our civilization.
I think what is accurate, both spiritually and scientifically, is each individual human is like a cell in an organism. We're not separate. We're all interconnected and interdependent. That's not a theory or an idea. And when you have a certain level of awareness, you see everything is interacting with everything. I can't be greedy. I can't be selfish. I can't be competitive, because that's based on an illusion of separation. But as you awaken, just the fact you and I, we both do breath work. We've had 16 breaths the last minute. We're interacting with our environment. If the environment is pure, clean air, then that's a good thing. But if it's polluted air, who's polluting the air? Is greedy human beings. And so this narcissistic encapsulation that I'm separate and I'm going to get what I want and what I need is an illusion, because we're all connected, just like cells in the body. When a cell gets selfish in the body, it's called cancer. Mm-hmm. And it's not only destructive to itself, it's destructive to the other cells. But when every cell recognizes it's interdependent, then it's cooperative. All the cells in the body, it's a fascinating, I had cuts. If you get a cut, amazing magical things happen in a matter of a few minutes. All these cells come together to prevent infection, to start healing the skin, and it's cooperation. It's not like these cells say, "Oh, I'm not going to help out. It's not my problem." They're all helping out. The blood, everything, the lymphatic fluids. And so as humans wake up out of this sort of narcissistic bubble, we see that we're all connected, and we start helping everybody. And by helping others, we're literally helping ourselves. And it's not this isn't some airy fairy belief. It's you see this, you recognize this. So that's the hope, is as people become more evolved, and to stop seeing others as the enemy, as the other, as wrong, and see we're all into this together.
Oh, it's kind of like waking up from a hypnotic trance.
Right. So that's the term I use. I'm glad you mentioned that, Ray. I'm really a de-hypnotist, because people are already profoundly hypnotized. When I think I'm not good enough, that's a hypnotic trance. So my job is to wake people out of that trance. So truly speaking, hypnotherapists are de-hypnotherapists, because we're already entranced in these limited beliefs and ideas and concepts. And so the process is to wake up out of them and notice we're free. So that's exactly why it's de-hypnotizing. I have cigarette smokers who come to me and go, "I don't think I can be hypnotized." And I go, "You already are hypnotized. You're smoking a cigarette. You're paying a lot of money to the tobacco industry to kill yourself."
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You must be in trance, else you wouldn't be paying a lot of money to kill yourself.
Poison, right. So they're already in trance. My job is to wake them up and realize they really don't need another cigarette.
And on a spiritual level, when people wake up from the trance of seeing themselves as separate from everyone else and all the conditioned beliefs that they have, you talk about like eventually you have to throw away all the teachings, and because that's all conceptual, and step back from it. Is that part of waking up from the? Can a spiritual seeker be as trance conditioned as anyone else?
Yeah, and a lot of the spiritual teachings are cultic, and we're prescribing to cultural conditioning, like when you get a new name and you start wearing different clothes and stuff. That's another trance. And when we're living the teachings conceptually, we're in a trance. So what's hard about waking up is you're no longer a Buddhist, you're no longer a Christian, you're no longer an atheist. Those are all trances. Those are all programs of the mini-me, the limited person. You really don't have anything to grasp. You can't, there's nowhere to take a stand in a way, because all of those are created through human concepts. They only exist if humans are thinking about them. And what you end up with is whatever's happening in this moment. But there is a profound recognition that everything's an expression of the same thing. So there is a unconditional love, and the key word there is unconditional. And so there is this deep love, this deep acceptance, but it's non-conceptual. When you wake up, you don't have to practice compassion. It spontaneously arises.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, that's like people. People will say to me things like if everything, if you're not.
You're breaking up, Ray. I can't hear you right now.
Then what? They just sort of stopped halfway, because if you keep going, it's like the like almost reflex instinctual reaction to this, realizing this is unconditional love for everyone. You just can't help it. You just want to love everyone. And so then that means it's like, it's the situation, people that are suffering, they're not real. The world's not real. The suffering ultimately is not real. But that doesn't mean you just stand there and do nothing, because you also know that they feel the suffering. For them, it's real. There is real suffering happening. And you feel like you want to do something to help people not experience that anymore. And I always feel like, Jesus healed people, even though he knew the sickness wasn't real. He didn't just say, well, that's it. Maybe that's how he healed it so quickly, because he refused to see it as real. And so in his presence, it would be healed very quickly. But he didn't just do nothing. So
when it's said things are not real, what that's pointing to is everything's transitory. But in the moment, somebody who's suffering, it's very real. It's real in this moment. And so, again, that's part of the philosophical write-off. One of my teachers said, well, we're just a little tiny planet in this infinite universe of thousands of galaxies. It doesn't really matter. Well, that's the intellectual write-off of the fact that humans suffer on many, many levels. And even though it's transitory, even though it's coming and going, when that authentic awakening happens, we're spontaneously drawn, because we're all connected with everybody. We feel, You know, a lot of people say waking up is freedom from suffering. Actually, in a way, you feel everybody's suffering more deeply because you're not encapsulated in your little narcissistic bubble, so that you're
Right.
vulnerable. You're vulnerable to everybody, dogs, cats, everything. And so there's this profound overflow of of this unconditional love, and we really don't think in terms of, well, this is not real, because in this moment it's what's happening. So the conceptual realms, the philosophies disappear. In this moment, this child needs some help. So the hope is that enough humans evolve enough to simply recognize how we're all, including all of nature, everything on this planet is interconnected and interdependent. And we're either acting and behaving in ways that are helping life thrive, or we're like cancers sucking up life. And it's not, again, it's not a philosophical or political position. It's seen to be so. It's like our own body. You know, either all the systems in our body are working together in harmony and balance, in which case we're healthy and we feel good, or some systems out of whack and sucking up the life force from the other systems. And our planet is very much like a body. I call it Gaia. And so this is seen to be so. Can't figure out.
No, here we are. Now I'm on the
There
other
it is.
side. You moved. Okay. So tell us about like what you mean by life positive.
Well, a lot of teaching, like Advaita Vedanta, Sankhya, Buddhism, schools of that, as you mentioned, they say life is an illusion, it's a dream, it's not real. So Advaita Vedanta says only Purusha is real, the realm of being, all of this is Prakriti, it's the play of the gunas. It's an illusion of energy.
Right.
And Sankhya really separates that. Buddhism says life is suffering. And of course there's truth in that. But when you have a life positive view, you see that this life is a gift. And we can live this life and appreciate it and like really express this Shakti, this incredible creative intelligence coming through us. Like you're doing it right now by this show. You know, this is an expression of your supreme intelligence is this show you've created. And so everybody has that at whatever level they want to manifest it. And so when we're focusing on this, on being instruments of this divine intelligence and this divine love, it makes life worth living. And we live positively. We don't see life as a problem. We see it as a great gift and opportunity. And that no way negates that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it's kind of like being in a lucid dream that you can't wake up from, and you know it's a dream, and so you could just get all nihilistic and say, well, what's the point? But if you're stuck in it, you might as well do what you can to make it as good as possible.
Have a good dream. Yeah.
For you and for all the other yous that are really, you know, appear to be other people in your dream, but are really just you playing other characters. And so you can, and so, yeah, it's like, you go from having like a living like in a separated kind of you know, when you believe in separation, that everybody is separate from everyone else and in conflict, that's kind of like a nightmare way to live. And then you see the underlying truth that we're all one, and then that can become a pleasant dream. And at some point I think you must wake up from the dream and then merge back into the great ocean, I suppose.
Well, we're always in the great ocean. That's the recognition. So in the tantric and Muktananda, it's called Kashmir Shaivism, but it's really non-dual Shaiva Tantra. And they have four. There we go. I don't know how it's showing up. But the first step is moksha, which is liberation. Realize your true nature. You know, what am I? What am I? Go back to that knower prior to the void. What am I? Now that you know what you are, the next step is dharma. And dharma is the way of living in harmony and balance with all life. So once you recognize your true, once I know what I am, I know what you are. We're the same consciousness in different bodies, different vehicles. Even those people I don't like, same consciousness is in them. That's seen to be true. And then there's living life, enjoyment. It's okay to enjoy your life. It's okay to enjoy life, and it's okay to be successful in life. But the first step is moksha, is waking up, because from that view, we can live in harmony and balance with all life, and we actually have more power to be successful and enjoy life. because we can walk, as it says in the Katha Upanishads, that razor's edge. You can walk that razor's edge without falling off one side or the other. And we're living the Dharma in harmony and balance with all beings everywhere. And then, by all means, enjoy your life. Enjoy every aspect of it. And that's where that creative intelligence moves through us, whether you want to be a rock and roll star or an artist or clean houses or whatever. Everything is an expression of that same joy, that bliss of consciousness. And so that view is a householder's view. It's not a monk's view. My initial impulse was I was going to go to the Himalayas and live in a cave. But Muktananda, after he woke up, discovered that Kashmir Shaivism, or non-dual Shaiva Tantra, more expressed as enlightenment, which is anybody can wake up in that view and then live in harmony and balance with all life and enjoy their lives. Become a successful entrepreneur. Do whatever you want. And that's makes life beautiful for everybody. So Ray, I have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Cool.
How'd you end up in St. Croix, or have you always been there?
Oh no, I came here in 2001. That was an interesting story. I was the executive director for Leonard Orr at Rebirthing Breathwork International, which is like the global training center. So you have people coming from all over the world to have breathwork sessions, to learn how to give breathwork sessions. And it was basically like I would put in like an 18-hour day, go to bed at 2 a.m, and at 5 there would be a knock on my door. Someone would say, "My death urge is up. Can you help me?" So I was like just being used up. So, and then we got a letter in the mail, like a written letter from someone here on St. Croix, and they wanted to come into the center in New York and take the training, but they couldn't or they didn't think they could because they had small children, and getting childcare and all that was going to be difficult. So they didn't know what to do, and they were looking for advice. Could they bring their kids with them? And so Leonard set it up, and he told them, Ray could use a vacation. Ray and his wife could use a vacation. I'll send him down there. They'll give you the training. You put him up for a couple of weeks, and so that was all arranged. And then Leonard told me, do some seminars while you're there. Give them the training. Do some seminars. Give some sessions. But you're required to hit the beach every day.
Good.
That was actually one of the first things that I noticed when we would do spiritual purification with earth, air, water, and fire. So the water part in the mountains of New York, there's no, sea nearby, was sitting in a bathtub for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And what I found was 15 minutes in the Caribbean, I would feel my energy body would feel, because I could feel my energy body. And like I tell people, energy cleaning is a lot like physical cleaning. If you didn't take a bath for 10 years, at first you'd feel horrible, but eventually you get used to it. And you wouldn't even notice there was a problem until one day you took a bath and you'd feel so wonderful. You'd be like, well, I'm never going to let that happen again. So, but people don't clean their energy bodies. And so people are walking around with really unclean energy bodies, and they don't even know it. And so once you get it clean, then you're like, well, I'm never going to let that happen again. And you can feel it right away. And so doing the whole regular bathtub thing in the training center in New York, it would take an hour and a half, 2 hours before I felt like I was clean, right? down here in the Caribbean, I only have to get in the water 15, 20 minutes, and and I'm clean.
It's because it's moving. It's moving. It's cleaning itself.
Yeah, and it's a huge amount of water, and it's moving, because that's the whole thing. The way that the bathtub cleans you is your chakras are rotating, so they're rotating through the water. So relative to the water, they're moving, and so the water cleans them. So you get in the sea. Not only are your chakras moving, but the sea is also moving. So you're getting twice as much movement. So it cleans really quickly. And then so I actually, I actually didn't want to come here because I had been to another Caribbean island and didn't like it very much. And I just assumed this one would be the same. But as my wife and I are getting off the plane, the energy I could feel the energy of St. Croix, and the energy was fantastic. It was just amazing. And it wasn't because I was being, hypnotized by turquoise waters, because at the airport here, all you can see is tarmac. So there's nothing to make you think how wonderful it is. But I could feel the energy. And I turned around to see if my wife could feel the energy, and I didn't have to ask her because she was grinning ear to ear. And so we were here for 3 weeks, and by the time we went back, we had already decided we were going to move back here, and it took us a year to arrange everything so that we could come back. So that's how I wound up on St. Croix. I was up in upstate New York in the dead of winter.
What town?
It was a weather bar. In Walton.
Oh yeah.
Walton in New York. Yeah. It has you're familiar? You're like the first person. I went to one town over to go grocery shopping once, and the cash register person had no idea where Walton was. Because as the crow flies, it's like, huh?
New York State's a huge state. It's got a lot of small towns, a lot of beautiful small towns, but they're poor now.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing state. That's where
Walton was from. Yeah, New York State, Walton, New York. Because because it's mountainous. If you could be beautiful. A bird, from Walton to the next town would be like a 10-minute trip if you could fly. But because you're going around and around the mountain, it takes like 45, 50 minutes. So that's why she had never heard of it. She'd never been there.
My daughter wants to retire to St. Croix. I think she has her eye on moving down there when she retires.
Oh, cool.
She's been down there. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. She'd tell her to look us up next time she comes.
My parents have been to St. Croix. My daughter, I think, is St. Croix or St.
Tell her to look us up.
I will. I'll tell her that. And, I never met Leonard Orr, but the breath work, it's holotropic breath work came out of rebirthing, I think. I think Stan sort of lifted that.
Yeah. Leonard, Stan Groff was, he had to stop using LSD because they reclassified it as like a class 3 narcotic. So he couldn't get it anymore. And he was looking for something to replace it with. And he met Leonard at the Esalen Institute, and Leonard gave him a breathwork session, and he was like, this is what I'm going to replace LSD with.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Well,
there's a definite connection.
The rebirthing breath, the form I used, did help people get in touch with their subconscious and stuff, as you well know. But hypnosis, I ended up using more hypnosis because more direct. I'm directing it, and it's less stress on people. It's hard to teach people how to breathe correctly.
Where is my water? Oh, why is it? That's not what. Hi, Tom.
Hi there, Ray.
We're back. I've been backstage for like 10 minutes trying to get on my own show. Yeah. When one of the incentives that I had for getting back down here, you asked me, before the break, you were asking about what brought me to St. Croix. And so when I was up in the mountains of upstate New York in the winter, and I had the weather bar on the bottom of the computer set to St. Croix, 78 and sunny every day, while I was looking at 8 feet of snow.
I could do it, yeah.
So what does your daughter do for a living?
She works for USAA. She works at home, and her husband's a judge, and they're in Colorado Springs. She
in Colorado.
Colorado Springs, yeah.
Colorado keeps coming up. It seems like I'm constantly meeting people from Colorado. Colorado just keeps coming up for me for some reason. So I'm like, maybe I'm just suspecting. But yeah, I actually have been to Colorado, spent like a summer there, and I often say that before I came to St. Croix, I had a list of like the 5 best places in the world I would like to live if I could arrange it. Like if I could find a good job there. Like Capri in Italy is one of those places, an absolutely gorgeous place to live. But also almost any place in Colorado. Like the first time,
a lot of beautiful places there.
Like Denver, for example, you walk out on the street and you see the Rocky Mountains, and it's just you're just awestruck. So I had this short list of places that I would like to live if I could arrange it. And then I came to St. Croix, and I threw that list away. Now I had a list with one place on it where I have to live, no matter what it takes. But if I were your daughter, I'd be like really hard pressed between Colorado and St. Croix. You might want to like hang on to both places. Maybe like
I think she plans to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my grandson has no intentions of moving out, so that the house they're in now will probably end up with him in it. So.
He's living there permanently by choice, or is there because of the current?
Well, he's still a kid, but he likes
Colorado
pretty well. Yeah, my daughter went to India. She knew Guruji, Sri Dhyan Yogi. He was about 100 and she was 1, and they were very fond of her. And one time I went to India to see Guruji, and he looked around the room and he goes, "Where's Kelly?" So she was very lucky to have met somebody like him and spent some time with him and come to know him. And also, Nandima was like her older sister for years.
So you started at 15, but she started at 1.
Yeah.
That's really great. That's really your whole like.
What's that?
Like there's a blessing there for sure.
Yeah. She's very lucky. So one of the things you and I, the breath work, it's very interesting because the breath is such a huge key. People are breathing all the time and they don't recognize that that's the divine life force living them. When I guide people, I say the one breath breathing you, because we say we breathe, but really we're being breathed. And the breath is consciousness moving into the body. And when we stop breathing, well, there's the breathless state, but the breath is what connects us with the life force.
Absolutely. I mean, I even tell people, like, when they start the breathwork session, at first it seems like a lot of work and you're wondering, how long am I going to have to do this? But at a certain point, the breath takes over and it's like you're
Yes,
just watching yourself being breathed.
right.
And
That
I think when
automatic
people,
process. That's what's amazing is all yoga can be automatic like that. And that's the thing, that the human mind, there's an intelligence outside the human mind that's taking over. And for some people, it flips them out. It's scary. But it's still an aspect of their true being. It's just one that's greater than the mind.
yeah, and they just have to, it's, like if you've never worked with any kind of energy before, it can here we are. So I don't know where we left off. I was talking about how can you hear me? Oh, I don't hear you. Did I turn off my speaker by mistake? Let's see. Okay, can you hear me, Tom? No. Let's see. Oh. Speakers. Okay, camera. I'm in the show. I can hear you. Okay.
There we are.
Now.
I heard you
How about,
broke.
okay.
There we go.
Hi. I hear you, but you're kind of breaking up.
Can you hear me
Yeah.
now? Okay.
Yes, that's good.
Good. Good.
Yeah, so you were talking, I mean,
go ahead.
yeah, well, right. No, you were saying how the breath work is like the life force energy moving through you, and the breath breathes us.
Yeah.
And the conditioned mind comes in and builds a story around that and makes a individualized separate body for us, and wind up with this storyteller, like there's a me inside, but that's just like a reflexive movement of the brain, and
right. So there's a cognitive center. I hope you're hearing this, and then story gets told around it. The autobiographical self is created.
we are all one with this
Yes.
life force. It's like moving, creating everything, and we're just part of it.
Yeah. I use the example of Christmas tree lights on a Christmas tree. You know, they're red, they're green, they're blue, they're white, and they each may be unique, but what's running them is the same electricity, the same life force. And so if you identify only as a light bulb, you're identified with limitation, but if you recognize the electricity is the same in all of them, they're all expressions of the same electricity. And that's part of the meditation, going back into the life force and recognizing that that same I am is in everybody, the same presence of awareness is same in everybody. When it runs through the programming, it seems different because everybody has different programming. But what's running the programming is the same.
Yeah, so it's like the filter. Everyone has their own filter that takes the programming and makes it look different, but it's really the same.
Right. And some of those filters are closed systems. You know, I'm right. Anybody who doesn't agree with me is wrong. And others are open systems that allow people to explore, become more conscious, more aware.
When you're like listening to you talk, and especially what you were saying about Muktananda after his awakening, concluding that Kashmir Shaivism was closer to how he was, what he had come to experience. And you know, Leonard, breathwork and Leonard Orr, he was a big devotee of Babaji in Harakan.
Right.
And Babaji never used the word Kashmir Shaivism, but if you read what few written accounts of his teachings there are, it sounds to me a lot like Kashmir Shaivism. And when you talk about, because you do a lot of work with the chakra system and with Kundalini and how Kundalini actually works and how it flows, and Babaji would talk about how the energy ascending, going up, is good, but the energy coming down is better. And there was like a special mantra for calling the energy down. It's like the grace, like you can only go so far through your own efforts.
Right.
And
so that's Shakti, the descent of grace.
And yeah, so and how do you see the relationship between like Muktananda and Kashmir Shaivism, and what you were talking about with the breath work and the energy, the Kundalini energy coming down as opposed to going up?
Well, just as a side, Babaji used the mantra Om Namah Shivaya,
Right.
which was the Shaivite mantra. But the true
Right. Yeah, true.
It's ascending and descending current. And the totality of our being is both the ascending and the descending. And that's what Kashmir Shaivism is basically saying, is it's not one. So the ascending current is like consciousness leaving form, but consciousness also comes back into form. And it's not one or the other. The trick is not to get stuck anywhere in the current, but to let the current flow, ascending and descending, ascending and descending. What happens is we get caught, like we may get caught in the descending current and become very materialistic. You know, all that exists is this material plane. Or you can get caught in the ascending current and say, only it's all a dream, none of it matters. But our full life is the ascending and descending current, and to allow that to happen. And I think that's what Muktananda saw in his awakening. It wasn't just ascension out of form, but descending into form. Both are the totality of our being, not one, not the other. Zen, they talk about hiding in the ghost cave, hiding in emptiness. So when somebody has a very deep satori and they experience that it's all empty, that can be a very safe and peaceful place to be. And in some traditions, they think that's enlightenment. But it's really a half-baked state, because then you have to come back into the world, the marketplace, and that's the descending current, you know, embodiment, bring it back into the body, you know, breathe deeply. And so most teachings are either, you know, the scientific materialism is only descending and the transcendence are only ascending. But we have both currents, and to be free in the current. And what happens when there's freedom is attention naturally goes where it needs to go. It can go into the transcendent when there's nothing that has to be done, but it can come right back fully embodied. You know, like if you're driving a car, you don't want to be in transcendent awareness.
Well, I have the experience like I was in a place where the storyteller went away, and I didn't think I would be able to drive, but I had to. And so I sat in the car and I'm looking at all the controls. I'm like, okay, what do I do? But then the word, and I had my keys in my hand. Somehow my hand needed to do that. And the word ignition came in my head. And the next thing I knew, my hand was putting the key in the ignition and turning it. And the car started and I was driving fine. And what I realized later was the storytelling aspect of, I wonder if that guy sees me. He's coming up on that stop sign pretty fast. He's looking at his cell phone. And does he even know I'm here? Maybe I better slow down and let, like the judgmental storytelling narrator in the head doesn't really drive the car. Right. I thought that's what drove the car, but it doesn't really, and it's not really necessary to drive the car. So
you drive better without it.
Yeah. Less distractions. So
yes.
And so yeah, you can drive it's like just doing things in the you can do ordinary mundane things without having the storyteller going on in your head, I think.
Right, absolutely. I mean that's the storyteller is a middleman that's not necessary. A lot of teachings try to get rid of it. It falls away by itself at a certain point. But it's an unnecessary step.
Yeah.
You know,
I've told this. I liken it to it's like I'm driving in the desert and there's a lake. Suddenly there's a lake on the road, and my ego is riding shotgun next to me and reaches in the back and pulls out a couple of buckets and offers me a bucket and says, we better get to bailing. We're going to be here a long time. But now that I know that the lake isn't really there, that it's just a mirage, I'm like, nah, that's okay. I'll pass. And so I look at that as like the ego That's like the ego. It's like for a while there, no matter how the ego arises, whether it's like irritation, annoyance, frustration, anger, fear, depression, fear of lack, even physical tiredness, I realized the underlying thing was always the ego trying to get me to believe that I'm a separate entity again.
Yeah.
And it's like that seemed to be like its whole game. And since I know that, I know that's not true now, just like, once you've seen that the snake is really a rope, you can never get scared again. Like you aren't going to forget, it's a rope, and you're not going to be like running away from a snake ever again. So once you know, and then it's like the ego is offering me the bucket, but I just like, I know it's not real right away. And so I just take, eventually the whole thing just sort of, it would come less and less and less and less frequently. And then eventually it just stops coming completely. So,
right. We stop feeding it with life force. It's one of the examples I really like. It's like a fan. And when you unplug the fan, it keeps spinning for a little while. But if you don't plug it back in, it slows down and then it stops. And the ego is actually thinking, and thinking as the ego requires an autobiography, a story, past, future, instead of this presence. And so our whole culture feeds that. So when the story stops, it's hard because the culture wants it feeds it. It feeds it. We're a consumer culture, buy more, do more. And when the ego stops, at a certain point, there's nothing to start again because, like you said, it's a mirage. And that's a very good example because you don't have to take a bunch of buckets to empty in a mirage. Now, one of the spiritual things people do is they spend a lot of time, a lot of years trying to empty the mirage. And that's a gradual path. This is Kashmir Shaivism. Direct recognition is the direct recognition, like you said, that it doesn't exist. You don't have to empty it out. And once that's seen, the appearance, because the fan keeps moving, may show up every now and again, but you've seen through it. So you don't have to fight the ego. You don't have to kill how can you kill something that's not even existent? The ego is a verb. It's something we do. And you stop doing it, it's gone. That's why a lot of people don't like meditation, because if you actually become still, you don't exist anymore as the ego. The ego has to be in motion. And so when you become very quiet, very still, there's nothing but presence. So most people stop meditating when it starts working.
They can't stand to be alone with themselves.
Exactly.
And the ego is like, it's not really an entity. It's more like an activity. It's like something you do.
Correct.
Something you've always done. So is that what your songs on Sunday are about? Do you meditate with people over Zoom that can join you on Zoom?
I talk. They talk. Fortunately, a lot of them share and talk, and we talk about everything. And I know many of them. They're all over the place, but I know what's going on in many of their lives because they've shared with me, usually privately. So it's a satsang, but it's also a Sanskrit word kula. It's a family. Everybody's welcome, and the only thing requires everybody be kind and respectful. And whatever issues come up are open to discussion, but ultimately it's the direct recognition of your true nature is what's being pointed at. And that recognition, then you recognize who everybody is. And that's where hate stops. That's where anger stops. Competition. That love. And again, one of the phases that people go through is when you start waking up, you go through a phase where you feel extremely vulnerable because you are. The defensive mechanisms of the mind start falling away. And so you feel very vulnerable, which can create for a while some anxiety and stuff. But actually, that will fall away. And then there's just presence and that compassionate, skillful action, not from thought, but just spontaneous intelligence moving through us. So satsang, it varies every week. No telling what's going to happen. Everybody's welcome.
What time is it?
It's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, same time I guess you're on, and it goes usually from 11 to 12, 12:15, 12:20. And anybody's welcome who wants to show up.
And they could get the Zoom link by going to your website.
Yeah.
I'll post the links up for the website, but just while you're on right now for people, what's this? The awakenedheartcenter.com, is that it?
Yeah, the awakenedheartcenter.com.
The
they may want to refresh the
awakenedheartcenter.com.
browser because our old website sometimes shows up to people and we're no longer in Southern Pines. And we just had the website updated, so they may, if they've been on our website before, they may want to refresh the browser to get on the current one. But it has all the Zoom information there.
Oh, okay. All right. Is that why you're like, I was on it for the show yesterday, and it was showing up on Google as not secure, telling me not to enter any passwords or, yeah. You might want to look at that. Means. I click on the donate button for PayPal, and then I'm on a PayPal site, and that's like totally secure, no problem at all. But I mean, just some people, probably most people wouldn't even notice, but
I'll ask the person who does our website. I'll ask her about that. That's a good question. I don't know any. We have somebody who did our website, and she still works on it. I have no idea what it means not secure, but I'll ask her.
But
thanks
yeah,
for pointing that out because that could be important.
Okay, no problem. And then they can get the Zoom link from there. And so what else do you want people to know about, like working with you, coming to this, so that you have the satsang on Sundays, and then they can work with you like over.
Yeah, I'm really. I'm only.
What is it you're really doing now that you really want to do and want more of?
Well, I did meeting with people, and I try to meet. I'm sort of mostly retired, so I meet with like one person a day, 6 days a week, sometimes 7, depending. Sometimes I have to meet with more, depending if there's suddenly an emergency. And I do that in the afternoon. And satsang, and that's basically all I'm doing now. I'm talking to you, Ray.
Yeah.
I gave up.
Do you find a difference between when you're doing satsang and no one has any questions, nobody something that's come up in their personal life or a question about a teaching, and then you need to just try to say something that's going to be relevant to everyone, versus when people have an actual question and you're answering an actual question from a real person, and when you start out, you have no idea what you're going to say, but by the time you're done, both you and the person who asked the question are really happy with the answer?
Hopefully. I often go into satsang having no idea what I'm going to say. And what I feel is the Shakti speaks. And I have no idea. Same thing answering questions. And I do ask people if they're interested, they can email me if there's something they'd like to discuss, or they have questions, they can email me and I try to address them. But if I go in the satsang and there's been no questions, sometimes I've been working with people during the week, the Shakti takes over and whatever happens, happens. But what I try to point out is everybody is present and aware now, and everything they're experiencing is coming and going in awareness. As Ramana Maharshi said, let what comes come, let what goes go. Notice what's always present. And that's the direct recognition that this presence of awareness is always here. Things come and go, but the presence is here. Outside of time. Outside of time. So I have the Shakti, you know, that's a name for a higher intuitive intelligence, and that's what I let come through me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I kind of come at all of this from a Christian mystic perspective because I had like an experience of Jesus coming into my room when I was 5.
Well, that must have been really cool.
Yeah. Now I kind of think of all of these experiences as sort of like aspects of consciousness, and it seems like whenever you're ready to make a move, sometimes consciousness will come to you in some form that you're comfortable with, just to sort of hold your hand and give while you do it. And then I got into breath work with Leonard Orr and found out about, you know, Babaji and Hinduism, but it's like I don't really see a difference with it. Kundalini, Holy Spirit,
right? Exactly.
Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. You know, so like I think of it as like
years in India, in Kashmir.
Yeah, Leonard.
They say Jesus is
Leonard did. Yeah. That so well. That makes me remember when you were talking about Babaji, so his mantra was Om Namah Shivaya from Kashmir Shaivism. Leonard would tell you Kashmir Shaivism got it from him.
Yeah, there's no problem there. Yeah, so what we have is scholars who I respect. I know some of them, but they're saying here's Kashmir Shaivism, this and this and this. The yogis are not interested in that. These transmissions of power, which mantras are, Hongso mantra comes from Babaji. That's one of Babaji's mantras too, the breath, the Hongso. So the yogis, they create this incredible technology that works. It's like science. You know, you do certain experiments, you're going to get certain results. These yogis are more interested in the technologies than the philosophies and the scholarship. And these technologies, as far as we can tell, have been around a long time. Babaji was up in Badrinath, his caves up there. His sister was up there. You know, these things have been around.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, people started writing things down, started sharing their experiences, and that gave the mind, you know, something to hold on to. But the technology and the actual recognition of the true nature of things is what's most important.
You have a phone number on your website. Is that still good? Can people call you on that number if they would like to make an appointment with you, for example?
Better to email me because of hypnosis and the stuff I do, I have my phone off almost all the time. I check it every now and again, but it's better to email me or text me. But yeah.
Okay.
And
And
I forgot, there was something I wanted to say, but I forgot what it was.
well, okay. I just want to as we're coming down to the closing minutes of the show, I just want to make sure that we had a chance for you to get everything out there that you want to get out there. You also have a blog, with writings on it.
So that's available from the website. I think you go to the bottom of the page and it says the blog, and you can click on that. And most of those essays I wrote in response to questions, and then I edited them and maybe added stuff. But almost everything I write is based on a question that somebody asked, and then so some of them are longer than others, but they're all pretty short. And I don't see people as needing to be fixed. That's what I want to say. When people come to satsang or meet with me, I don't see people as having to wake up, having to be fixed, having to be any different than they are. It's all divine consciousness. And so what happens in my relationship with people is up to them, not up to me, because I don't see them as a problem. I don't see them as needing to be fixed. But if they come to me and say, I want to have better relationships, or I want to be enlightened, or whatever it is, then I can support them in moving towards that. But I don't see a problem.
Well, part of it is just like the energetic reaction, like feeling. I look at it as you're either flowing love without blockage or obstruction, or you're not. And it's good to, in order to use this, it's good to develop the skill of being able to feel the energy, feel whether it's flowing or not. Some people are so contracted and unused, not used to checking for that they can't tell. And sometimes I'll have clients who I ask them how they feel, and they'll tell me, "Well, I don't think it's a good idea." And it's like, no, feeling, not thinking. How do you feel? But eventually, you can feel the energy. You can tell if it's flowing or not. And if it's not, then you basically place your awareness there and figure out why it's not flowing, and what do I do to restore a harmonious flow to it again. So, right. Yeah, and like if you're working, yeah.
So feeling energy, for people who feel energy, it's like seeing and hearing. It's hard to believe people don't feel it. People go, I can tell in meditation group who's thinking and who's not thinking. It's not, I can feel it. I can feel the thinking. And animals,
yeah.
I walk in the woods, animals aren't afraid of me because they feel me. They know I'm not going to hurt them. So when I walk in the woods, I have a different experience than somebody who's hunting, where the animals can feel them too, and they're gone. So animals are much more sensitive to the energy. That's one last thing I want to say, Ray, is Shaktipat. The whole system's set up, this idea you need a guru to get Shaktipat. But actually, if people are even listening to us, they've already had some degree of Shaktipat that the center grace. Yeah. And so it happens spontaneously. And if people are interested in this, some degree of Shaktipat has happened, that awakening to that energetic realm. And if they stay true to that, more degrees of Shaktipat will keep happening. And the true guru is not some person, but this inner consciousness, this inner awareness, this energetic intelligence is the real guru. So when people say you have to have a guru, what they're really saying is waken to this power, this higher intelligence within yourself that's greater than our human mind, our me mind, our little thinking thing. So yeah, that's important because we all have everything we need. But I agree with you. It's amazing when you're around people who don't feel the energy. It's like it's like it's like a sixth sense or something. You know, you feel it.
Yeah, but it isn't like people need to be fixed, like you were saying, and
Well, when they need when they're loved and accepted, they relax, and then the energy comes out. So most of us are contracted because of our fear and anxiety, being judged, criticized, manipulated, used. But when somebody's in the presence of somebody who loves and accepts them as they are, they relax that. And then the energy starts moving. And eventually they'll feel it.
yeah, I've had the experience that you were talking about. I've been in the woods, and I've had deer come up to me like
Yep.
2 inches away. Horses, mongoose, cows, goats. There was one time I was in Virginia, and I was doing like a fire retreat, a vision quest, and there was like a really horrible sound. It was either a mountain lion or a bear, and it didn't come 2 inches away, and I actually was kind of glad about that. Well, let's see. How do you see? All right, so we've got people running around, spiritual teachers, like, you know, I don't want to like give us puffed up heads, but you, me, Eckhart Tolle, other teachers, Adi Shanti, Byron Katie, we're all saying people don't need to be fixed. They're inherently perfect as they are, and yet the world's a complete mess. And so what is the role of a teacher like you in helping the world to be less of a mess?
I think we're so defended, and I do think that as people wake up, like I mentioned earlier, you recognize we're all connected. And on the website, I talk about we're all on the same bus together. You know, we are connected, and I think when people are accepted, when they are feel that unconditional love, they do relax, and in that relaxing, that encapsulation releases, and they start becoming more aware. And in that, they're not so defended anymore, and they connect with other people. They don't worry about protecting their territory.
So all we've got to do is we just have to wake people up at a faster rate than babies are being born.
Right? Yes. Yeah, that's the hope. And it's the Maharishi, Mahesh Yogi, all these people, Jesus. It's like if enough people wake up, the human race has a fair possibility of becoming sane. But you can't wake people up, and they have to make that choice. They have to realize.
And that's the thing. They have to make that choice, and they're choosing to inflict suffering upon themselves almost constantly.
Yes.
It's like because we just want to be separate. It's like from Paradise Lost, where Lucifer says, "Better to be the king of hell than a servant in heaven."
Yeah. But for Lucifer, those are the only two options. There's a third option, which is step out of the game. And that's the loving kindness. That's the acceptance. See, the mind is a defense mechanism, so loving kindness scares it because it becomes vulnerable. But at a certain time, this is a whole different, it's okay to die and it's okay to be killed. So being alive in a physical body and surviving is not the priority anymore. What's more important is loving kindness. And if you look at history, all of this is why it's scary. Is so many people who realize that Socrates, Jesus, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. I mean, I could talk for hours. They all were killed by fellow human beings because they became free. So, what was Socrates doing but educating the young men of Greece? And that freaked them out so bad, they had to kill him. So it is frightening to become free because society, the egoic, human, consumer, controlled, dominating society is terrified of that.
So we like
civil rights movement, anti-war movement, the peace movement of the 60s and 70s. So much. We weren't violent, but the people were violent towards us.
They freak out. They feel threatened.
Yeah.
The ego feels threatened.
Robert Kennedy, he was another one. Robert Kennedy.
I've even said, if you look at the history of the last 10 or 15 years, I feel like how bad it's getting is like proof that people are actually waking up, because I think the ego feels so threatened it doesn't care anymore about not being obvious.
Yeah, and the bad stuff makes the news.
Yeah.
What's going to be on this conversation probably isn't going to be on the evening news. But if something hard, there is horrible stuff happening, that's going to be on the news. So the fact there are people meditating, the fact people like you and I are having these type of conversations, that's not interesting to the ego, to the encapsulated ego. But people are waking up. I'm in a small town in North Carolina. Now we can connect all over the place. People from Canada come all over the place on Zoom. But it's amazing who shows up. And so it is happening, but it doesn't make the news. So it seems like evolution isn't happening and all the horrible stuff is happening. But that's an illusion.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I guess it's all just taking place in consciousness. There really isn't even an internet. The people who are coming to your satsang from Canada to North Carolina, in some sense, you're right there. It's all one in any way. It's like it's like we're using our technology to get closer and closer to how it really is.
Correct. So the internet, you're in St. Croix, I'm here, but at the same time we're together. So the electronics is dispelling the illusion of separation. So I'm with you, you're with me, you're in St. Croix, and I'm in wherever I am, Pittsburgh. It's an illusion of separation because here we are together.
Right. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. In spite of all the breaks, thank you very much for being on.
It's a pleasure, Ray.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tom. People should check you out on Sundays, 11 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I always tell everybody, because it's the weekend, get outside, get into nature. I mean, you don't have to hug a tree, but I just tell people, if you just go out in nature barefoot, be around some trees or something green, be on the grass, walk on the beach, you will feel better. You will get an improvement in your health and your mental outlook. It makes a difference. So
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Namaste, Tom. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Ray. It's great meeting you. Great being with you.
Same here. And for real, we got family coming down to St. Croix I'll email you my phone number later if you don't already have it, and they can give us a call, and we're kind of not really into restaurants, so we'll have to get recommendations along that.
You can walk along the beach together.
Yes, cool. Yeah, that's like spiritual purification. You go to the beach, you walk barefoot, that's earthing. You gather your wood, that's manual labor, which is also earth purification. You start a fire, there's your fire purification. While you're doing that, you go for a swim, that's your water purification. Then after you're done with that, lay down and breathe. So now you got earth, air, water, and fire. It's like the perfect.
You're all set. Got all the chakras. Yeah.
I'll show your family a perfect day on the beach.
That would be great.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. See you next Friday. All right, I'm leaving the studio now.